Have you ever felt like a ghost in a room full of people? Like your voice is a mere breeze brushing past ears that never really hear? Your words dismissed, your needs mocked, your very presence overlooked. It doesn't just hurt, it hollows you out. But here's the harsh truth. It didn't happen by accident. Respect isn't handed out freely. The world doesn't bend for those who play nice. It doesn't slow down for those who hesitate. If you've been walking through life trying to win favor by being agreeable, soft-spoken, always accommodating, know this: you're writing yourself out of your own story. Because deep down, people don't trust what doesn't stand firm. They don't listen to what doesn't demand space. And they certainly don't respect what never says no. You may think you're being kind, being peaceful, but what the world sees is someone unsure, someone malleable, someone who can be bent, shaped, and discarded. And in Machiavelli's world, and ours, there's only one fate for people like that: irrelevance. Niccolo Machiavelli believed it is far safer to be feared than loved. That doesn't mean cruelty, it means command. It means becoming a figure who knows their value so deeply that the room shifts when they speak. And if they're silent, that silence is still heard. You don't earn power by asking for it. You seize it by knowing who you are, where your lines are drawn, and never apologizing for it. But maybe you're thinking, isn't that manipulative? Maybe you're uncomfortable with the word feared. Good. That discomfort means you still have work to do. You see, fear isn't about intimidation. It's about clarity. Clarity of boundaries. Clarity of self-worth. When others know where you stand, when they sense the immovability of your convictions, that's when respect begins to form. You've likely spent years trying to be understood, accepted, loved. But have you ever tried to be respected? Have you ever walked into a room and claimed space with your silence, your posture, your eyes? People are not drawn to people pleasers. They are drawn to certainty, to presence, to gravity. You become a force not when you smile through discomfort, but when you say, "This is not okay," and mean it. Machiavelli's warning is not a call to become heartless. It's a wake-up call to stop being invisible. Because until you learn to command fear, not through aggression, but through strength of presence, you will remain at the mercy of others' whims. Let me ask you, how many times have you swallowed your opinion to avoid conflict? How often have you tolerated disrespect because confrontation felt risky? Each of those moments trains the world to treat you as optional, replaceable. But the moment you set a boundary and enforce it, the moment you say no without explaining yourself, you begin to rewrite your place in the hierarchy, not below, but centered. This shift doesn't come easily. You'll be tempted to fall back into the comfort of politeness. You'll fear being labeled difficult, cold, arrogant. But those are the words used by people who benefit from your silence. Think of every strong figure you admire. Were they passive? Were they constantly seeking permission to exist? No. They moved with intent. They stood like mountains. And when the winds blew, they did not sway. They made others adjust course. So the next time you feel disrespected, ignored, overlooked, don't shrink. Don't explain. Stand tall, speak less, and let your presence speak volumes. The world won't give you power, but it will recognize it once you've claimed it. Because respect begins the moment fear ends. And fear ends the moment you stop fearing being feared. The moment you begin standing your ground, something unexpected happens. People start to test you, not because they doubt your resolve, but because they need to know if you mean it. This is the law of psychological gravity. When you shift from being compliant to becoming grounded, those around you feel it, and some will try to tip you over just to see if they can. It may start small, subtle pushbacks, mocking remarks, manipulative smiles. Someone will laugh when you say no, trying to play it off like a joke. Others may guilt you. You've changed, they'll say, as if growth were betrayal. But in truth, you're not changing into someone else. You're finally becoming yourself. You see, for too long, you've been trained to equate softness with goodness, to keep the peace at the cost of your voice. But peace that silences you is just quiet oppression. The cost of pleasing others is always the betrayal of self. And so you begin this inner rebellion, not against others, but against the habits that kept you small. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop asking for permission to be firm. You stop explaining every decision like you're on trial for wanting something different. And suddenly, you notice something. The people who benefited from your silence begin to retreat. They lose interest, not because you've become toxic, but because you're no longer easy to manipulate. This is one of the loneliest moments in personal evolution. You realize that not everyone was your friend. Some were just comfortable with your powerlessness. But here's where the turning point comes. You stop measuring your worth through their reactions. You stop interpreting withdrawal as failure. You realize your self-respect is not negotiable, and their discomfort is not your burden. When Niccolo Machiavelli spoke of being feared over being loved, he was pointing to the uncomfortable truth that power dynamics shape every interaction. We crave love, but it is respect that keeps people from taking us for granted. And respect is born from boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are thresholds that define who has earned the right to be close. They are invitations to connection with conditions. Without them, you become a revolving door, always open, always giving, always exhausted. So you learn to say things you once couldn't. No, I won't tolerate that. No, I don't owe you my time. No, that doesn't work for me. And as you speak these new truths, your nervous system screams at first. Every fiber expects backlash. Every cell prepares for rejection. But what you receive instead is a deeper silence, one that says, you're not who you used to be. And that silence is sacred, because it signals the birth of something rare, integrity. You are now someone who says what they mean and means what they say. You are now someone who cannot be bribed with approval. But beware, your growth will irritate the insecure. Those who once felt superior to you will project their discomfort as blame. They'll accuse you of arrogance, of being selfish, of...
If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.
thinking you're better. Let them. Their projections are not your reality. They are mirrors breaking under the weight of your clarity. And yes, it is lonely at first. But loneliness is not the enemy. It is the passageway through which your authentic tribe finds you. Because the people who truly respect you are not the ones who expect you to shrink. They are the ones who see your rise and say, finally. You start to attract people who match your boundaries, who reciprocate your depth, who don't flinch at your no, but admire it. And from here, your relationships shift. You no longer settle for being needed. You choose to be valued. You no longer chase after being understood. You choose to be known. You no longer offer loyalty to chaos. You choose peace with integrity. This transformation is quiet, but profound. Like a tree that no longer leans for light, it stands and lets the light find it. So if the fear of being feared still lingers in you, understand this. Fear is not a weapon. It is a signal. And when used with wisdom, it does not isolate you. It frees you. You don't need everyone to like you. You need a few to deeply respect you. That is the foundation of real connection, of inner power, of leadership. And so you walk forward, not louder, but clearer, not colder, but stronger. And as you do, the world will respond, not to your charm, but to your certainty. Because the day you stop asking for respect is the day you start receiving it. There comes a moment when silence is no longer noble, only suffocating. You've been quiet to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to seem agreeable. You've nodded when you should have spoken, smiled when you should have drawn the line. And each time, a piece of you whispered, "This isn't right." But conditioning is a powerful thing. It trains you to believe that being liked is the highest goal. That your discomfort is a small price to pay for harmony. That if you just stay kind enough, quiet enough, patient enough, others will finally see you, respect you, choose you. They won't, because what you're teaching them is not your value. You're teaching them your threshold for mistreatment. And the longer you let it happen, the harder it becomes to reclaim your voice. This is the paradox of being gentle. The world will either see it as grace or weakness. And until you clarify that difference through your actions, people will project their preferences onto you. The person who always adjusts is the person no one takes seriously. So what do you do when you finally realize that your kindness has been misread as compliance? You rebel. Not loudly, not recklessly, but with unshakable conviction. You begin to disappoint the wrong people. You start saying no without explanation. You remove yourself from spaces where your energy is only consumed, never replenished. You stop trying to fix what's never been your mess, to begin with. And at first, it feels wrong. It feels like you're becoming selfish, cold, distant. You're not. You're becoming aligned. Alignment is not about perfection. It's about inner congruence. It's the moment your actions begin to reflect your truth, not your fears. And with that alignment comes clarity. You no longer confuse comfort with compatibility. You no longer interpret longevity as loyalty. You finally see. Some connections are prolonged forms of self-abandonment. That's when you start pruning, not out of bitterness, but of necessity. You release people who only call when they need something. You distance yourself from those who mistake boundaries for betrayal. You stop negotiating with emotional bullies. And perhaps most importantly, you forgive yourself for all the years you stayed silent. Forgiveness, after all, isn't always about others. Sometimes it's about making peace with the version of you who didn't know better, who tolerated too much because love was defined by suffering. Now, your definition changes. Love is no longer a battlefield. It is not earned through sacrifice. It is not proven by endurance. Love, real love, aligns with your peace. It honors your no as much as your yes. It holds space for your fullness, not just your usefulness. And as your standards rise, your circle shrinks. That's okay. This is not loneliness. It's refinement. You're not being abandoned. You're being recalibrated. The people who remain, the ones who respect your growth, who celebrate your truth, who don't demand the older, softer version of you to return, those are your people. And here's the real shift. You stop trying to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop exhausting yourself with elaborate justifications. You realize that clarity is an inside job, and it doesn't require consensus. So you walk forward lighter, clearer, sharper. You are no longer a mirror for others' insecurities. You are no longer a sponge for their emotional chaos. You become a boundary wrapped in grace, a person who loves deeply, but selectively. That is power. Power isn't domination, it's definition. And when you define yourself clearly, the world learns how to treat you. That's when you move from reaction to intention. You no longer chase validation, you embody value. You don't demand loyalty, you inspire it. You don't fear disconnection, you understand its necessity. Because true connection cannot exist without self-respect. And self-respect begins the moment you decide you're no longer available for disrespect. So let the misunderstandings come. Let the judgments roll in. Let people whisper that you've changed. They're right. You have. And that change isn't a loss. It's a liberation. There's something deeply unsettling about discovering you've been living someone else's idea of who you should be. You wake up one day and realize the choices you made weren't really yours. The career you chased, approved by others. The relationships you endured, chosen out of fear. The silence you kept, a learned survival tactic. Somewhere along the line, you stopped checking in with yourself. You started playing a role that pleased the crowd, but hollowed your core. This is the quiet tragedy of self-betrayal. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't break you in a single moment. It dissolves you over time. But eventually, something ruptures. Sometimes it's a betrayal. Sometimes it's burnout. Sometimes it's just the unbearable weight of pretending. And suddenly, the mask cracks. And for the first time in years, the real you gasps for air. That gasp is not weakness, it's awakening. Because before you can reclaim your life, you must admit what parts of it were never really yours. And that's terrifying. Letting go of the version of you that was accepted, admired, or even envied can feel like a death. But it's the kind of death that gives birth to truth, the kind that sheds illusion and resurrects integrity. You begin to question everything. What do I actually want? What do I believe? Who am I when no one is watching? These questions aren't signs of being lost. They're signs you've stopped lying to yourself. And as the fog lifts, a new kind of clarity arrives. One that doesn't depend on approval. One that doesn't shrink to keep others comfortable. One that dares to disappoint people, if it means you'll stop disappointing yourself. This is the path of individuation. Not isolation, but self-possession. The moment you stop outsourcing your identity. The moment you stop seeking mirrors and start becoming your own compass. Of course, not everyone will welcome this version of you. Some will say you've changed. What they really mean is you're no longer controllable. Some will withdraw their affection. What they really mean is you're no longer bending to their expectations. Some will call you selfish. What they really mean is you've reclaimed your time, energy, and truth. Let them say what they must, because your new life will cost you your old one. It will cost you the people who only loved your mask. It will cost you the roles that required your silence. It will cost you comfort and certainty and reputation. But what you gain, worth it all. You gain nights where you sleep without regret, mornings where your reflection doesn't feel like a stranger, conversations where your voice no longer trembles with doubt. You gain congruence, where your inner world and outer life finally match. And from that congruence, you create, not just externally, but internally. You begin to rebuild your values, your rituals, your relationships, from a place of honesty, not habit. You don't perform strength anymore, you embody it. You don't fake joy, you cultivate it. You don't beg for connection, you attract it. Because now, you've become magnetic to what matches your truth. And yes, there will still be days when the old self whispers, when people from your past try to guilt you back into their version of you, when the loneliness creeps in and tempts you to compromise for comfort. But you'll remember, you've outgrown the lie. You'll remember the cost of shrinking. You'll remember the taste of self-abandonment, and you'll choose differently, not because it's easy, but because now it's necessary. This is the sacred rebellion, becoming who you were before the world told you who to be. You're no longer seeking to be liked. You're committed to being whole. And wholeness comes with edges, with boundaries, with no as holy as your yes, with presence that doesn't perform, with love that doesn't negotiate your worth. That's how you'll know you've arrived. Not at a destination, but at yourself. You are no longer hiding behind personas. You're no longer negotiating your truth for acceptance. You're standing tall in the storm, not because it doesn't shake you, but because now you know your roots. And as the world shifts around you, you won't chase stability, you'll become it. This is your power, unshakable, unedited, unapologetic, not loud, not aggressive, but steady. And in a world obsessed with image, that kind of authenticity is revolutionary. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be real. And if that makes you too much for some, let it be. Because the ones meant for you will never ask you to tone it down. They'll meet you there, fully, fiercely, honestly. And that, finally, is freedom.